Good afternoon, good early evening, folks. I hope everyone is doing well. It is Monday, April 29th. Um, I'm a little tired today, but I'm here. So I had a wonderful weekend celebrating my fiance's birthday, and so I'm a little tired right now, but I'm here. Let's get into it. I hope you all are doing well and enjoying this beautiful weather. Um, My name is Dr. D, and it is good to be here with you all, courageous school leaders. So, as you know, my passion is empowering urban school leaders like you to lead with confidence so that you can transform your instructional culture. And the way that I believe you need to do that is, shifting your lens to develop this data lens, to become more data literate. And in doing so, you become more affirmed and feel confident in the work that you do. So I am a product and an advocate of public education. I believe that we have the power to change the systems that continually oppress our most marginalized students, right? The ones that get overlooked a lot. And Margaret Wheatley, my girl, says it all the time. I say it all the time. Be brave enough to have the conversation that matters, but I will add that you need to be courageous enough to create the disruption that is needed to change the current conditions that our marginalized students are facing right now. And so that's the purpose of this conversation every Monday at 6:30 is, I present a topic, an article, and I ask you, what are your thoughts? And so today we're going to dig into like a part two, and I'm going to stay on this idea of the core instruction equation. Um, and today we're going to talk about an example. There is a book that I found called Improbable Scholars by David Kirk. Um, I didn't read the book. I've read articles on it. I've read like synopses of it. But it does lift up some of the points that I talked about last week with the core equation live from last week. And so this week we're going to pick up on that and talk about the core equation in action. Like, what does this look like in action? Now, keep in mind, this book was written in 2013. And so the district that it is referencing in the book does not have the same kind of data that it had back in 2013, which is another point of conversation that should be had around the sustainability of these practices that we put in place, right? And so let's get into it and talk about like how back in 2013 that this district, Union City in New Jersey, really committed to making the change that was needed. And reading all of the articles about it, let me share one with you. Um, and reading all of the articles about it, there was a um, collaboration and partnership among the mayor and other policy and makers, right? About how do they shift Union City's current state, which was really, really low, to becoming a better functioning, sustainable school system. And so they came together, and of course, this is the part about education that I don't like, but I know has to exist, but I wish it existed in a different way. Education is money. And so in this book, Improbable Scholars, they talk about how the district, the mayor came together to find the money. And I believe one part of it, they said they actually got, what's his name from Facebook? Can't remember his name right now, but that he donated $100 million to the school reform efforts that they were putting working on, right? What's his name? What's his name? It's in here somewhere. But you know what I'm talking about. His name is escaping me right now. Like I said, I'm tired, so please forgive me. I'd rather show up than not show up. And so the gentleman, the Facebook guy, I can't remember his name. It's really bugging me. It's gonna come to me before. we're done today. But anyway, he donated $100 million toward this school reform effort for Union City School District. It ended up being like, they had two high schools that combined it and made one to make this, like, build this beautiful building. But in addition to the aesthetics of the schools, they also devoted time to the structures that make the core equation work, right? So let me go to this article. This is one I really want to lift up here. And this article is Reinventing Higher Education is the publisher, and it's a review of the book, okay? But I want to lift up how the core equation was mentioned in this book and how it worked. But again, one of the biggest things that we do in education, especially public education, is we try these new things, these new initiatives, and we go really hard for them, and then we wane, right? Our efforts wane. And that's where we need to really change how we are approaching these initiatives, right? Um, so Union City School District was once struggling. Like, keep in mind, this is back in 2013. It was once struggling. And because they implemented these things by focusing, like, things specifically being like rigorous learning standards and continuous improvement, it shifted their instructional outcomes, right? And so the first thing that they did, according to this book, was the district aligned, and this is the thing I talked about last week, is like, we take curriculums that are written by companies and we just take it and just like regurgitate it to kids, right? But what Union City did was they aligned the curriculum with clear to the standards to make sure that they understood the standards, right? It was a part of their professional learning, and they ensured that that's what they did. In these articles here, they talk about how the dialogue during the professional learning communities allowed the teachers to reframe their thinking whenever they were engaged in these conversations, these deeper conversations about curriculum and standards, right? And so all the way from kindergarten through high school, every teacher in Union City District, like, this was a district-wide effort, not just a school, knew exactly what was expected of them because of how it was outlined in the professional learning goals, right? So this whole idea of planning. And so one example that they shared was how the bilingual education within the district, they catered it to meet the specific needs of students, like ensuring that they were um, adapted to the context of the community, which is another big thing, right? To lift up is like having your students, the relatable content for your students to learn from is really critical, right? So it's this in context piece is huge. And so that is one of the approaches that Union City used. And again, comparing this to last week with the core equation, which I will remind you is deep knowledge of learning standards plus data analysis equals core instruction, right? That's the core equation. That's the core instruction equation. You have to have both in order for it to be like to have huge impact and for it to be sustainable, right? Well, part of that sustainability is another factor that we would need to add into that equation, which is consistency, right? Monitoring and being consistent, right? This whole idea of this cycle of continuous improvement. And so I want to share a part of this article which really stood out to me. Talk about the money. Here we go. So this part here. There is no doubt about the success of the Union City school system. And Kurt, who's the author, is able to explain its improbable results, right? Dedicated staff, meaning teacher aides, teachers, aides, and administrators who come from the community. I'm going to stop right there for a second. Like, who come from the community. And this is not to say that if you do not live in the community in which you teach, that you can't teach students. But what it does say is that you have a better understanding because you do come from the community, right? Like, I started my teaching career um, in New York City in the Bronx, Community School 6. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, right? The Bronx and Brooklyn are very similar communities, right? It- in the hood, an urban community, low income, those kinds of things. That's where I taught. I could relate and understand my students better because I either experienced a lot of the things that they experienced, or if I didn't experience them, I could empathize with what they were experiencing, right? Because I was so closely connected to the same environment or a similar environment. Again, this is not to say that someone who is not from an urban community cannot empathize, because that is an emotional intelligence muscle that we all need to build. But there's something to be said for teaching in teaching and living in the community in which, well, living and teaching in the community, in the same community, right? Um, I was in the Bronx for 2 years, and then I went to back to Brooklyn and taught in Brooklyn. I actually taught at my alma mater with my fourth grade teacher right down the hall. It was amazing. I went to public school 5, right? It used to be called Blanche K. Bruce Elementary School on Hancock Street in Brooklyn, New York. And now it's called Ronald E. McNair. I don't know if they changed the name again, but I could walk literally around the corner to my house. Though that community was mine. Those babies in my classroom, in that building, walking through those halls, were mine as a teacher, right? They were my neighbors. So the way that I could relate to them was very different than someone who, when I went there as a kid, none of the there was, I can count on one hand the teachers that were black in that school, right? That I could relate to. And so this statement here about, you know, who come who come from the community, they understand the needs of students and know or are willing to learn the best ways to develop their students. Okay? That is so important because I've been talking in previous lives about how relationships are key. And I believe I showed a different matrix last week, but I do have a matrix and a relationships and expectations matrix, um, with the 4 quadrants to kind of show, like, are you in the comfort zone as a leader? Are you in the ideal zone? Are you in the neglect zone? Or are you in the pressure cooker, right? Zone. Those things, having the relate like understanding relationships and expectations and how that dynamic of the two is really important for you as a leader and also for your staff to be aware of as they are engaging with their students, right? And to develop that emotional intelligence muscle, right? That's the whole relationships piece. And so I really wanted to highlight that point in this article about how they are saying, in Union City, how they were successful, right? The dedicated staff. The most important resource we have in education is people. And as a principal, we know that, right? You have 1 or 2 people calling out, you're shifting everything about your whole schedule's being shifted. So the ability for for your staff to understand the needs of students and know and are willing to learn the best ways to develop their students is critical for this piece, right? And that is a part of the core instruction equation as well. And that would fall under the learning standards piece, right? And the data piece, right? Because you know Because you know your students, you're better able to assess where they are making them or having the misunderstandings. The second part about this book is the role of data, right? So we talked about how using learning standards is critical, but also the use of data and becoming data literate. I know last week I mentioned about how gave some suggestions on how to increase you and your staff's data literacy so that you become more familiar with it and comfortable with learning it, right? And so this book talks about how Union City turned like the part of their turnaround was the like really meticulous approach to data systems, right? To data, how they used it. That is all about systems that you create as a school leader, right? So teachers, according to the article, teachers use data from statewide tests. And this is the most important part, right? Like the statewide test shouldn't be the only thing that you're using. And they use regular informal assessments to inform the instruction daily. Daily. And in order to do that, you must have deep knowledge of the learning standards, not just depending on the curriculum that is created by a company, right? But no idea, no context of your school community, right? The impact is like this ongoing cycle of feedback. For Union City specifically, it mentions about how it allowed teachers to actually pinpoint where students are struggling, which is what I talk about all the time, right? Like being able to identify the misunderstandings and adjust the teaching methods in a like immediately, not a week later, but right away, because you have a deep understanding of the standards, right? You see how they coincide with one another. Like you can have one without the other, but it's not sustainable, right? Um, so an example of this is like if a student wasn't doing well in a specific concept, the targeted interventions that you and your staff could apply would quickly like fix that in that same week. This type of cyclical teaching, think about this for a second, and I want your feedback on this. This kind of cyclical teaching and data and deep dive of like knowledge of the learning standards and using informal data helps remove the high demand we're currently seeing for tutoring right now. Like the demand for tutoring right now is like unbelievable. There are RFPs out for tutoring across this nation. And tutoring is not going to fix the gap that we have with our kids. It is a temporary fix. It is a band-aid. We need an enduring fix. That enduring fix is the core instruction equation. Deep knowledge of standards, being data literate, and using informal data, right? So this book also talks about, like it describes how the teachers have used the data widespread to help, you know, increase reading comprehension across the grades on a district level, which is amazing. And keep in mind, Union City District is small, but it's still amazing, right? I don't want to negate the great work that they've done, but I also want to provide context for you. One of the other things that um, I want to point out here is one of the things that helped create these results is that there was a homogeneous Latin population with a high level of trust and community connectedness, right? The mayor who was leading this charge was committed to fixing the schools, right? So there's so many layers in here, but as a school leader, you can't wait for a mayor to make the kind of level decisions for you to fix your school. Okay? You can do that without a mayor having any input on what's going on in your building. Okay, I just want to stress that. But I'm sharing this with you because they're saying that these are the things that helped the school district do better, perform better. Another thing, the final thing that they share is this synthesis of standards into the core instruction. And so Union City is their understanding of the learning standards combined with the proactive use of data created like this robust framework for instructional excellence. Here's the problem, right? Well, first off, the result of that is you're going to have increased student incomes, you're going to have decreased dropout rates in a community that's feeling uplifted by the success of the school, right? What our students, uh, our most marginalized students really need this kind of focus, this core instruction equation, okay? So Union City's success was like underpinned by this deep understanding of what is needed, right? The very equation that is essential to the Innovative Leader Coaching, a group coaching program, right? That program unpacks a framework that actually peels back the layers to this core instruction equation. So I know you've heard me talking about the Innovative Leader Program, the group coaching program. And so the structure for it, the Innovative Leader Program, group coaching program, provides a structured format, right? So these structured modules that focus on both of those elements, right? Diving deep into learning standards and mastery of data analysis, right? Similar to what Union City did here. Um, so if you are interested in learning more about the Innovative Leader Program, which is going to actually start in June, which is just in time for summer planning, um, type ready in the comments below, and then I will send an invite for us to have a quick coffee chat to see if it's something that you're interested in, or how it can benefit you, because I know it will and it can. And so I want to go back to the article to talk about the core principles of how this was considered to be effective. And so one of them was putting the needs of students at the center of decision making, children first, always, right? Investing in quality preschool. Now, this is a district initiative, but I'm talking to you as a school leader, right? Especially if you're um, have a preschool or you're a principal of a preschool. These things are critical to make sure that your students are coming in at least with some knowledge in kindergarten. If they're identifying those students who have not come in with preschool, right? What are you going to do to make sure that that gap between those students who have not had preschool is closed compared to the students who did attend preschool, right? Speaking on a school level now. These bullets are speaking about the district level, but I'm letting you know how you can use this as a school leader. Develop another principle is developing a core, a rigorous, consistent, and integrated curriculum. Again, I want to be careful with this word curriculum and make sure that we are talking about standards. I don't want the curriculum to replace the standards. Okay. Another principle is using data extensively to diagnose problems and pinpoint solutions. That is an ongoing cycle. It never stops. Okay. Another principle is building a culture of high expectations and respect and positiveness, right? Things that I've talked about in previous lives about building that emotional intelligence muscle. And then the last two, well, the last one, the second to last one here about embracing stability, which is really important, and avoiding political drama. That's more on the district level, school leaders. You don't like that. Your focus is not that at all. You should not be focusing on that. And then the last principle was continuously improve, right? Plan, do, review. The cycle of continuous improvement. Now, here's the thing: is something, and I really want to find out. I'm going to find out some more information about Union City because clearly there were a blue ribbon school. They had a couple of blue ribbon schools. But when I looked up their information recently, it was very disheartening, I have to say. And so that leads me to to ask some questions around um, what happened, right? To me, this is such a prime example of what happens when you don't codify a process so that it is sustainable over time, because that's what we're looking for, is the longevity. So if they've had success in 2013, as this author followed them for over a year, and tracking their work, noted the success that they had over that year, but then what happened after that, right? That is the question that we need to think about. It is 95% Latino. Um, and 52% are on free and reduced lunch, right? Their test scores, one thing that I found impressive is that 90% of their teachers had 3 or more years of teaching experience, which is great. They're a small district. They have about 12,000 students in total, I believe. Yes, 14 schools, 12,000 students, right? Um, and the minority enrollment is 100%, with 97% of it being 95% being Latino. Um, Here's the part that was disheartening. Look at these scores. 14% proficiency in elementary and 16%. What happened? Like, don't you want to know? I want to know. I mean, I could pretty much make some educated assumptions about what happened just because of my vast experience in education, right? Like, I've seen this before, just like I'm sure you have. But to go from having all of these accolades and being like this beacon of hope in the community in 2013, where this growth was exponential, to 11 years later, where we have 14% proficient in elementary and 16% proficient in middle school for math. And then for reading, 32% middle school, 37%, and high school, 62%. What happened? I want you to share some comments on the replay and tell me what you think happened here, right? Like, we know consistency is critical, but tell me, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what happened here. Because there is data to show that when leadership changes, that there's a ripple effect on stakeholders, right? And the impact that stakeholders have, um, with students. So this is really disheartening. But I wanted to share the article with you so that you can see how Union City used this process of, using the core instruction equation to actually make the gains that were needed. The problem is the ball was dropped somewhere, right? And they were unable to clearly pick up any momentum again. And so share your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Um, and think about how you can apply the learning here from you about with Union City, for your own school, and what steps you can take tomorrow to start this transformation. Well, one of the first steps you can take is just type the word ready in the comments below, or DM me the word ready, and I'll send you so we can schedule some time to talk about the Innovative Leader Program, because I have codified a process for the core instruction equation. Um, and so I'd love to chat about what that looks like for you and your leadership, and how you can use your Title II professional development funds to help with in registering for this program, okay, and planning over the summer. So share your thoughts. I want to thank you for your time today, for watching the replay or hopping on. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you being patient with me through my tiredness today. um, and I hope to see you next Monday on the next What Are Your Thoughts? Have a fantastic Monday, everybody.